Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Sans hair gel for like the last week. I don't know why, but I'm just not on a hair gel thing right now. I'm au naturel, preparing for Winnie Schrader to come in and talk some true crime with us tonight. We are going to have a lot of fun with Winnie because she is absolutely amazing and a big fan of what we do here as well. So before we bring Winnie on, let's say hello to Tim Mothman in the gold medal position. Mel WD-40 with a silver. T-Bone taking home the bronze medal tonight. Kitty Caddywhack, how are you? Tim Mothman and your goatee. Hope you're enjoying tonight's show. Mel WD-40 is here lubing us up for tonight's show because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. You don't want any of that rigidness, as literally it's uncomfortable when you're talking true crime if you're not lubed up. So thank you very much, Mel, for the lube. Luscious Jewels, I thought you became a member yesterday. Was I wrong? Maybe I'm having a Mandela effect here. I swore you became a member yesterday. Thank you again. Appreciate you, my dear. All right, race fan, how you doing? Good to see you, the lovely and talented Kira. Hope you're feeling well, my dear. Please text me an update if you don't mind. I'd appreciate that. I'm waiting for it impatiently right now. Right now, Bar Madison, how are you? Necessary Dialogue, good to see you as we continue on with our roll call. Robert Lamoth, Attorney at Large, Michael Morris, how you both doing? Kitty Caddywhack is kicking off the super chat tonight. Thank you for your love, Kitty, each and every night. We really do appreciate it. The super chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Fap Nuts is here. Fap Nuts will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Scrolling on down, we got Mama Catherine. I love you, my dear. I hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful night. I know you're going to enjoy this show because Winnie is absolutely awesome. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy. I'll do all the work for you tonight. Yeah. All right, Cat Chaser, you're awesome. And there's Susan disguised as Morris again in our chat room. And who else do we have here? We have Jaquetta. Nice to see you as we continue on with our roll call here. And let's see here. Who is next? Well, we got to get through a long conversation first. Cosmic Joe, how are you tonight? As we continue on with our roll call. And let's see here. Thomas Rock, good to see you. Eternity Eternal. Aussie Boss Tiger, how you doing? Welcome. Good to have you here. Little Cam on YouTube, so excited for Winnie to show up tonight. He did 1,100 push-ups in just an hour and a half. His arms are sore, his arms are jacked, but he's ready for tonight's show. Destiny Rocks, nice to see you. As we continue on with our roll call, there's Operation Shutdown. And let's see here. Who is next? Pam Harris. How you doing? I'm Hardcore over on X. Nice to have you back. Undead Jed, Corey, Road Flare. Nice to have you all here. Ozzy, good to see you. Hi there, Monica. How are you tonight? As we continue on with our roll call, Astral Fugitive. Nice to have you here. Be Done With It is here. Be Done With It. We'll be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Be gentle. It's Be Done's first time signing autographs. So just be gentle. Probably a little nervous. Let's get the radio side going. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're taking a roll down the true crime road. Winnie Schrader is going to be here to talk about some creepy true stories of true crime. We'll get to her in a moment. We're just in roll call on our YouTube side. Oob to Joe's Maine, you've got criminals. Yes, you do. Bill Sardellis, how are you doing? Frankie B, nice to see you. As we continue on with our roll call. Al Garay over on Twitch, 400 pounds bench pressed 14 times to warm up for tonight's show. In the studio, how are you? Nice to see you. As we continue on with our roll call here, we are caught up. The super chat is open. You can join our YouTube membership right now, and our store is always open on our website. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag, so make sure you check it on out. Horns up. Let's rock.
Are you ready to hear your mystic voice of the night?
It's time to wake up.
He's here. Be quiet. He's ready for you to listen. Let's point our ear towards the little cabin in the woods. We're together, my friends. Oh. It's time for Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott.
From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We have an amazing show tonight. We're going down a road we don't normally do, but I have a lot of fun when we're there. True crime tonight. Winnie Schrader, true crime researcher and podcaster, is here with us to break down some real eerie, weird, strange true crime stories. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller will kick things off. Then we will be joined by Robin Haynes for the Crypted Q&A. So let's get right to it. I love it when this guest joins us. Winnie Schrader is a writer and paranormal researcher who has a passion for uncovering the stories hidden within the shadows of the unknown. With her background in creative writing, Winnie brings a unique voice to the paranormal world, blending a vivid storytelling with deep research into hauntings, cryptids, and supernatural lore, as well as true crime. Yep. Her ability to capture the eerie essence of strange encounters or horrible encounters has made her a compelling voice in the communities where she connects the dots between folklore, spiritual, true crime, and why things are done. It is absolutely terrifying when she goes into some of these stories because she loves a good deep dive to find out truly what makes the worst in humanity possible. Winnie Schrader, it is nice to have you back on Spaced Out Radio, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on again, Dave.
Well, you know, you and your hubby, Dave, you always have free reign. Anytime you want to come on, we make it happen because we absolutely love you guys around here. We really do.
Oh, we love you too. We love all the SOR fans. I mean, there's been a lot of crossover, and I know our fans of now are your fans and vice versa. So we love it. We love coming on here and just, BSing and just having talks about true crime, paranormal, whatnot. So, and I like I tell Dave, I'm kind of like the prequel to your story because more than likely most paranormal haunted locations, a true crime happens. So I, so I'm kind of like the pre-researcher and then he does the post-life stuff. So but yeah, it's just we have fun kind of doing our thing. He does more of the paranormal stuff, but I like to incorporate some of the paranormal stuff into my true crime as well. I call those my true crime stories with a paranormal twist. So but it's just I've always just been fascinated with true crime. I love puzzles. I love where evidence can take you, the roads it can lead you down. And, it's always been a passion of mine. And, Dave just finally said, why don't you just finally do your true crime podcast? So I said, all right. So I started Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot.
Well, the funny part about it is, as somebody in our chat room, I'm hardcore over on X, just stated, many paranormal locations have a true crime background. So there is
That's
a real overlap between what your husband Dave does and what you do.
Mm-hmm. And what's even cool, I mean, like when he did the Holzer Files on Travel Channel and even Ghosts of Devil's Perch, when he did those shows, a lot of times the official account that's on paper of what happened, if it was a crime, a murder, whatnot, sometimes what they get on the paranormal side is a completely different story. And then they start uncovering more. It's like cold cases with paranormal in it. And I think it's fascinating that there are a lot of paranormal stories that involve ghosts, but also in real life, the crime. I mean, the Greenbrier ghost. I mean, the guy literally was convicted of murder based on a ghost's testimony in court. So it's like, but obviously it has to hold some type of water for a jury to believe the mother who was having visitation dreams from her daughter who was murdered by her husband, and he said it was a horrible accident. But she kept coming to her mom in dreams saying, no, he's the one who killed me. He's the one who killed me. Well, they exhumed her body and found out she was strangled to death. It wasn't natural causes.
My goodness, that is creepy. That is just insane. I've heard stories like that before.
Yeah.
In India, I don't know if
Mhm.
you ever heard this story, because Indian people really believe strongly in their cultural belief of reincarnation.
Yes.
And there is one famous story out of India where an 8-year-old boy started telling about his previous life and how he was murdered.
Yep.
And he actually pointed out who his murderer was. And the man who did the killing got so freaked out, he actually went to police and gave himself up because he was so afraid that this was going to haunt him the rest of his life with other people coming back from the grave.
Right. I mean, any normal person would be like, no, that kid's crazy. He's talking crazy. Don't believe what he's saying. I don't know this kid. I mean, but they really took it for the kid's word because, that's part of their culture. Maybe if we start making it more part of our culture, well, maybe it'll be a little bit more, you'd see it more often in the court cases. I mean, police officers during investigations, they do use psychic mediums to help them locate bodies or missing people. But everything is still so on the down low and hush hush. And, they don't want they don't want it public out there because everybody still has this misconception of the paranormal that we're a bunch of kooky weirdos that believe in stuff that isn't really there. Well, some of it has to have something to it. Because, like I said, you wouldn't find somebody guilty of murder, or a guy wouldn't confess to a murder just because a little boy said that he was reincarnated and that's the man who killed me when I was an adult. So I find it fascinating. It's cool. And I find it, I love how those two intersect. And I love it when it's in the public eye and people just can't grasp it.
Why fall in love with true crime? I think if I say this, I think we all have an interest in it. We
Uh-huh.
all, at one time or another have watched a documentary on, whether it's the Green River Killer or whether it's Aaron Hernandez or whether it's, Ted Bundy or Jeffrey Dahmer or somebody so many of these sick psychopathic people. But why do you think we fall in love with such macabre topics?
Well, it's like rubbernecking. I mean, it's like everybody, it's a train wreck. Everybody's going to look. People want that, even though they don't want to see it, they want to see it. you know, they can't help themselves. It's our innate need to just know. Now, when it comes to like the gore and stuff of true crime, that's not really why I like it. I'm thinking of the aspects of why did they do what they did? What in their past caused them to snap and start killing? Because you could have two of the same people that live the same exact lives, and one could be a doctor and the other one could be a serial killer. So, what caused that one person? What was the one event that caused that switch to flip in them to now they're this monster and they can't turn it off? Those are the kind of things that intrigue me. One thing I really love about true crime is just the aspect from the crime to the verdict. The whole systematic thing when it comes to any type of case, whether it's, a kidnapping, murder, serial killers, just the steps and all the stuff that goes into a true crime case, especially if they get caught and they go to trial. We none of us really got a really good glimpse of a courtroom until the O.J. Simpson case. I mean, we had court TV, but there was like Judge Wapner, the People's Court, but we're watching people sue, it's like a small claims court. But to really see a trial, a murder trial, was the O.J. Simpson, and everybody was glued daily to their TVs watching this thing because it was so fascinating to watch. And I think people are just intrigued by those things that, it's almost like it's kind of like that thrill. They're watching the roller coaster go down that hill. Ooh, it looks exciting, but I don't know if I can. It's that kind of thing you toggle back and forth with. But it's just, I look at it more of a scientific and analytical way. I always like to find out what's going on in their heads and why are they doing what they do. That's more my forte. But I know a lot of people, they just love it for entertainment, which I find kind of weird if they look at it for more entertainment. But what I find entertaining, and that's the reason why I wanted to get on tonight with you, was the guy over my other shoulder. Sorry, I'm backwards. Over my shoulders, Dexter. I am a huge, huge, huge Dexter fan. I watched the full original run of it, and then they came out with Dexter New Blood. Watched that. Then I watched Original Sin, and now Dexter Resurrection is on. And Dave and I have been watching it. We're just, we can't wait for the next episode. But the reason why I picked Dexter was because, a lot of the serial killers in the series itself were based off of real serial killers. Even Dexter himself was based off of a real serial killer. So it's like kind of going down that road. And then I'm like, I wonder if there's any copycats of Dexter. And sure enough, there was quite a few that I pulled off. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Because I look at Dexter as the entertainment that it is. It's entertainment. It's a TV show. It's not real. But us being the humans that we are, not everybody can decipher between reality and fantasy, right? So
Mhm.
there have been copycats or ones that have kind of owed their need to kill to Dexter. And but the weird thing is none of them, I mean, Dexter would have put them on his table for doing the wrong thing because they didn't have a code. In the series, Dexter has a code, and his code is that he kills other serial killers. He is a vigilante serial killer. These people just picked random innocent people. So they're nothing like Dexter. As much as they are nothing like him. So, but yeah, I was kind of shocked by some of the ones I came across.
As you have studied this subject, you
Mhm.
have to go deep, deep in order to try and figure out the psyche of a lot of these different type of people, whether they're copycats, whether they had abusive childhoods, whether they are just some sort of human abnormality. What have you learned about studying many of these people who commit heinous crime?
Well, usually about, I would say, 94% of most violent criminals have some sort of abuse or trauma in their childhood or something like that in their life. It could have been anywhere from living in severe poverty and crime to drugs. I mean, child abuse, sexual, physical, you name it. And like I said, that's been kind of a common factor. Now a lot of them, I have done a few episodes where a lot of these kids who end up violent criminals were in the foster care system at one point or another. So it's almost like you kind of see it's like the systematic issue that we're having where, like I said, like a good about I would say about 65% of kids that go through the foster care system end up in prison at some point in their life. And that's a pretty staggering number. And, so it's like, are we breeding? Are we making these violent criminals? Because there's no reason why a 16-year-old kid who is homeless on the streets and, like, if they get caught up in a crime and, not to say I would condone this behavior, but let's say they kill somebody. It's like, do they belong in prison for the rest of their lives? Or could we reform them and get them back into society as functioning people as they should have been in the first place, right? So those are the kind of things that I kind of look at as in a whole when I'm looking at cases like these. What were these people's backgrounds? Did they have an trauma in their adulthood? I mean, that can happen too. Women have been sexually assaulted, men get sexually assaulted, things like that. That can be some form of trauma that can trigger something in somebody. But yeah, I would say a common one is some type of abuse or neglect of some sort.
Yeah, it really is troublesome. I mean, how a lot of these people turn out. Do you think that for most serial killers that they want this, they want to be like this?
No, I think a lot of them don't know why they feel the way they do. They don't feel. They don't understand why they feel the way they do. And that's why they kill, 'cause when sociopaths and psychopaths, they do lack empathy. They can't empathize with somebody else's feelings. So they could do something that upsets you, and they don't understand why it's upsetting you, and then why their behavior is causing you to be in distress, and that you don't think you should stop because it doesn't make sense to you. Like, why? They can't grasp it. So that's very common. So when you take that and you meld it in with, I don't know, I don't know if it's like, is it the trauma that causes it? I don't know. Some people are born with it. But it's just that lack of empathy and the randomness that they can just pick victims and not have any remorse. That's what's really scary, is the lack of remorse they have. Because I know if I had to take somebody else's life, it's for good reason. I'm protecting me or my family, but I'm still going to feel bad about it. That's not my goal. But when you have somebody that doesn't have that 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 empathy, or just feeling remorse, even though it was the right thing to do or what you had to do. You're still going to feel bad, but not having that's really scary. And when you have lots of people walking around like that, and I feel like there are a lot more sociopaths kind of being created today just by social media alone. It's like nobody has any care for anybody's feelings whatsoever. But imagine if all of those people on social media literally took action to it. How they talk to each other on social media. That's how they do. And they close off, and that one moment, whatever it is, if their motive of killing is, it's that split second. They feel something, they feel a jolt, and then it's gone. So that's why they do what they do, because they feel something for a brief moment.
So much like an addict on, say, heroin or fentanyl, the murdering becomes the drug.
Yes. The feeling of it, that euphoric feeling, that high. And you're always chasing your first high when you're an addict, right? Well, it's the same thing with killers, and that's why they keep doing it, because they'll try, and most of them will cool off. They have cooling off periods, and then when that urge starts building and building and building, eventually they have to release it. And that's why you always see serial killers. You always find you'll find a victim here, and then a week later another victim, or it could be a victim here and 2 years later another victim. It just kind of depends on the serial killer's need to satisfy that need, that urge that they have.
In the 1970s, this is a statistic I just looked up.
Uh-huh.
There were nearly 300 known active serial killers in the United States. By the 2010s, they estimated that number had dropped to fewer than 50. And now, with the advent of social media and everything, they're not sure how many there are today.
Yeah, and that's sad, because it's and I don't know what it was about the 60s, 70s, and 80s, but that was like a 30-year span of just serial killer after serial killer. That's when you had the Ted Bundys, the John Wayne Gacy's, the Jeffrey Dahmers, the Richard Ramirez, Dennis Rader, the BTK killer. I mean, I don't know what it was about those eras that created such monsters. That's one thing I still have yet to figure out. Or even come close to even trying to figure out, because I don't understand what was different about the 30s and 40s and 50s from the 60s, 70s, 80s, that serial killers, which there were some back then. Maybe it was because back then they didn't have enough intel to connect crimes, maybe. I don't know. That would be a theory that has been bandied about, is saying maybe, a woman got strangled and killed up in Toledo, and in Cincinnati, same type of woman, looks the same way of being killed and everything, but they're not putting the two together. So that could very well be why there's not as many known prior to the 60s and 70s eras. But yeah, with social media, it's hard to say, because it's is it because maybe it's just to the point where there's nothing that's grandiose that's making it stick out? Now, the only one that has come up in recent cases, that I would put in any type of category of a serial killer, would be Brian Kohlberger, who is the one that murdered the 4 Idaho college students. And
hold that thought, because I know we're going to get into a lot of that and more stories tonight. Winnie Schrader is here. True crime, a little bit of wine, a little bit of chatter. She's got a great podcast, so we'll get her to tell you about it when we return on Spaced Out Radio. True Crime Night. We don't do it often, but when we do, I love this topic. And I know many of you love it too. We'll be right back on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we are clear.
All right.
Good start.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I was looking at like some of these serial killers. I still cannot figure out why those eras. I was like, was it the what did they put, the fluoride in the water? Maybe that did it. I don't know. But it was just like all of a sudden everyone was a serial killer. And don't pick up hitchhikers, don't do this, don't do that. Stranger danger. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, they told you not to go near vans because somebody was
Yep,
going
me
to
too.
kidnap you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's in Vancouver. We had when I was a kid, we had a serial killer, child killer named Clifford Olson, who
Oh,
was driving around what we call the Lower Mainland of British Columbia. He ended up killing 14 children before he
jeez.
was caught.
That's sad.
Yeah,
So
and it was all
sad.
about vans. Be careful if you see a certain color van.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It was always the van, or never, if a stranger comes up to you and wants you to find their puppies or tries to give you candy. Nope. So it's just like, yep, stranger danger. And then, with Adam Walsh,
Yeah.
then you had Code Adam. And God, he literally that whole thing happened a month before I was born.
Wow.
It's so sad. I know. I'd love to get John Walsh on my show. He's awesome. I don't think it was Otis Toole that did it. I think it was Jeffrey Dahmer.
You think so?
Hmm. If I had $100,000 to put down on it, I'd bet all 100,000. That's how gut feeling, how strong I feel about it, and some of the evidence. As little as evidence there is, it's enough to say, yep, that was probably him.
That's horrible. Horrible.
I know. He was. See, that's another one. Like Dahmer, he could have, like, if he would have got the proper therapy, I think when he was a kid, I don't think we would have had what we had with him. I think he was messed up in the head to be at birth because his mom took so many psychotropic drugs while she was pregnant with him, because she was like on these lithium and all this stuff because she was manic. And I don't think he just knew how to be, and he had just had this weird need. I don't know. I think if he would have got proper therapy and treatment, I think he wouldn't have done what he did.
Yeah, because for all intents and purposes, he was a pretty, like, I watched that entire documentary series on him.
Mm-hmm.
And he seemed like he was a pretty smart guy, but just outcasted himself because of just, watching abuse happen around him.
Right. And he also growing up in the 60s and 70s, being a gay man.
Yeah.
Having to hide that part of yourself on top of, dealing with abusive trauma. And I'm pretty sure he was probably like on the spectrum a bit, because he just like seemed socially awkward. Like he just didn't know how to interact with people properly. And what I mean is just like
Mhm.
like when he was in school, he had friends, but his friends thought he was still weird. Like he he'd do weird, goofy stuff, and it was like he was just trying to fit in all the time. And it just came off awkward and weird.
We have about less than a
right.
minute to go here
Iron
before we
Wolf,
come
that
back.
is exactly right. Gacy as well with his sexuality. And that was a huge thing with a lot of male serial killers during those eras. A lot of it had to do with homosexuality and being gay men and having to be so closeted and closed off because of how society
Mhm.
treated them if they were openly gay. Sad, but
Oh,
true.
that is very true. That
Oh.
is very true. We have 20 seconds. Just get you to pause right there. Big thank you tonight to our lone super chatter, Kitty Cattywhack, for kicking things off. Luscious Jules, second night in a row, joining our membership on our YouTube channel. So thank you very much. You can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. Here we go. Comes the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. It's a true crime night here on the show. Our guest, Winnie Schrader, hanging on out with us. So you know it's going to be good. Hey, we want to remind all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Every podcast network has this show. It's called Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot. So you can learn some true crime while sipping on your favorite bottle of wine. And the host of it is Winnie Schrader, who is our guest tonight. Thank you so much for being here, Winnie.
Oh, thank you for having me, Dave. I always enjoy being here with you and all the SOR fans. So you guys are always a good punch.
Appreciate that. Thank you. You were going to talk about this case that has intrigued you coming out of Idaho.
Yeah. Well, me being the Dexter fan that I am, I always try and look. I'm like, okay, this guy seems a little off. So I kind of try and Dexter him and start researching him. That's what Dexter always do with his targets. He would do vast research and vet them out to make sure they deserve to be on his table. And so it just kind of got me looking into him more, and that's Brian Kohlberger, the guy in Idaho who murdered 4 college students there in their home in the middle of the night or early hours of the morning. And then I started looking into it. I'm like, wait a minute. This is like the plot to season 8 of Dexter. I was like, what? So, okay, let me play it out for you. Now, in season 8 of Dexter, I'm not going to give anything away. I'm just going to kind of give the key of what the whole season 8 is about, is where Dexter, his father taught him this code that the people that he puts on his table deserve to be on that table. They have done something bad, and they keep slipping through the cracks and not serving justice. So Dexter takes justice in his own hands, right? So I was like, okay, well, in season 8, he encounters this forensic psychologist named Evelyn Vogel. Dr. Evelyn Vogel is the doctor who taught Dexter, his father, the code to teach Dexter. She's the one that came up with it because he knew Dexter was going to be who he was going to be. So he gave him a code and trained him to say, when you feel the urge to kill, make sure it's for good. And so she gets back into Dexter's life. Now, he never met this Dr. Evelyn Vogel, but it's like, I knew your father. So Dexter's learning a lot from her. Well, in Brian Kohlberger's case, he was a criminology student. That's what he had. He was trying to get a PhD in criminology of some sort. I'm not exactly sure what his specialty was, but he also studied under the tutelage of Dr. Kathleen Ramsland, who is a forensic psychologist, just like Dr. Evelyn Vogel was in season 8 of Dexter. And she would teach forensic psychology of serial killers. She is kind of the serial killer whisperer. She talks to serial killers. What got her down this train, the very first criminal she reached out was a serial killer, and she befriended him, and she'd communicate because she wanted to understand why he did what he did. And it was a boy who was kind of a protege. I mean, he worked under a serial killer, so it was almost like he was grooming him to become a serial killer. And that's how she befriended him, because she's like, I need to know why this kid thought he should help this other guy kill. He would curate boys for this man to kill. I mean, it was awful. And so I'm just like, okay. And then I found out that Brian Kohlberger was going to prisons and asking violent criminals and killers why they chose the victims that they did, and how did it make them feel before, during, and after. And okay, it's a criminology student, but when you put everything in whole, Brian Kohlberger was socially awkward. Every time he was around women, he was very inappropriate with women. And I don't mean like, grabby. He didn't know boundaries. Like, he would be standing in a line with somebody and he would go around and sniff a woman's hair that was standing in front of him. And then if you were to say, hey, don't do that, he'd be like, why not? Like, well, I don't want you sniffing me, dude. Get off me. But it's just like nothing grasped at him. And I think what he was doing is he was trying to kind of create his own moniker as a serial killer. Every serial killer has one, or leaves a something behind, like a mark, or he had the smiley face killer or a happy face killer leave a happy face sign on his letters. Zodiac, I mean, he would sign his letters with the Zodiac. Jack the Ripper, sometimes Zodiac also left the Zodiac symbol at the locations of the crimes. So it's something like that. So I'm like, okay, is he trying to create his persona as a serial killer? Okay, well then why? Because the one thing that everybody wanted to know about this whole Idaho case was, why that house? Why did he pick that house? Was it the people inside? It could very well have been. I don't think they were going to the same college, but he just lived like 10 minutes in a next town over. So they very well could have interacted or came across each other, crossed paths. There was a local restaurant that two of the girls in the home did work at that was a vegan restaurant, and he was a vegan. So that could have very well been. But I'm like, okay, but then I'm like, okay, well, there was 6 people in the house. He only killed 4 of them, and he knew the other 2 were in the house. It wasn't that he didn't know they were in the house, because he walked right past one of them, made eye contact with her. She had no clue who this guy was. She was the one that did the bushy eyebrows, because he was wearing like a balaclava mask. So all you could see were like his eyes and his eyebrows, and that he was tall and athletic, and the bushy eyebrows, that was her. Okay, well I'm like, okay, well that doesn't make sense either. So why would he leave survivors? Well, more than likely, maybe he wanted somebody to tell his tale. And then I was looking at the house address, which is 1122 Kings Road. Now, it happened November 13th of 2022. So you have 1122. Could you pick the house because of the house number and the year, the month and the year? Maybe. Okay, well 13. Well, 1 plus 3 is 4. There were 4 victims. So you have so this is where my brain goes, Dave. So I'm like, okay, so you have and then if you were to add 1 and 1 from the 11, you'd get 2. So 2 plus 4 is 6. 6 people in the house, you have 4 victims. So I don't know if that was something he was trying to go off of, trying to start establishing. And I think he kind of feels ashamed he got caught on his first shot because part of his plea deal, because this was set to go to trial because he originally pleaded not guilty, but he pleaded guilty, and he pleaded guilty to all 4 counts of murder. But part of his plea deal is that he will never have to reveal the reason why he chose that house and those victims. He never has to reveal it, which has kind of torn the families into, kind of divided the families, because some of the families are, I don't want to deal with a long trial. I don't want to have to keep reliving the horrific murder of my child. I can't deal with it. But some of them wanted to know. They felt like they had the right to know why their child. And, I think as a parent, I would want to know why. But, that's why I'm trying, and that might be why my mom brain was kicking in, and I'm trying to make sense of why these kids were murdered too, because they were so young and so full of life, and they had no reason to be murdered. They had nothing to do with these kids. And to say that he didn't do it at first is just a joke. And I think he's ashamed he got caught. And that's why he's not giving up his motive, because he doesn't want to say he was trying to become a serial killer and got caught on his first shot. Because I guess in those kind of circles of people, that might be construed as being, kind of idiotic. I don't know. I don't know if there's some weird serial killer club that they all have to rate their stuff, but you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there was something more to him, and I'm glad that he did get caught, thanks to the forensic people really doing their due diligence, especially checking cameras, because they had this joker driving back and forth in front of this house weeks before he murdered these people, so he's surveillancing the place. And the one night he decided to turn off his phone because he didn't want to be traced was the night of the murder. But he didn't turn his phone off the 3 weeks prior. Every night he drove by. So on his phone record just shows him driving by almost every night by their house, casing out the joint. He wasn't that smart. He thought he was, but obviously he needed more schooling in the criminology department.
We have heard this though before, that a lot of university students, they just seem to snap and break and do things that they shouldn't, and they feel they have to take their fellow students down with them. Considering the fact that this case is a couple of years old now, but still at the helm of many people in Idaho's minds, was there any reason why afterwards he gave an intention as to why he did it?
Nope. He has been so stoic. I mean, he just sat there and he says, as he was pleading guilty to each charge, I mean, just the lack of remorse in his voice. I mean, he's just like a robot. There's nothing there. He's dead behind the eyes, and that's why I think people like that, they do kill, and it's not necessarily killing. It's the thrill that they get from it. I'm sure if a piece of chocolate gave them the same exact thing, I'm sure a lot of them would choose to eat chocolate. But sometimes it's just not enough for these people, and that's why, it's always good to like if you know somebody in your family that has dealt with severe trauma or whatever, always, do your studying up and just say, what are some signs of sociopathic behaviors in young children? So that way, if you do see those signs at an early age, you can catch it and treat it so it doesn't grow into the monster that it can become.
Yeah, I mean, that's just troubling. I mean, see, a case like his, you know,
Mhm.
I know a lot of people when it comes to serial killers or mass murderers, we immediately think we got to put them through the death penalty. And in Canada here, we do not have a death penalty. Even though I think for some cases, whether it was Clifford Olson or the pig farmer in Vancouver or Paul Bernardo or somebody along those lines, I think the death penalty should have been put back on the table. But I mean, that's a different debate for a different night without getting political on it. But I think a lot of these people who have been, sent for execution, I think that they have, in a way, I think their minds would have been way more interesting to study rather than leaving them locked up. I mean, you
Right.
can only cure something if you know what the cause and the effect are. And
Mhm.
with these minds, if you immediately stick them on death row and then, let them rot until their execution date, there is a lot on the table that maybe could save some lives in the future or maybe even help eliminate. I don't think you'll ever eliminate all, but eliminate a lot of these cases because they can think like the criminal, and I learned that a little bit from watching. I've been watching this show the last couple of months called The Blacklist, and
Okay.
it was a 10-year series with James Spader where he plays
Mhm.
the most wanted man on the FBI's list and gives him a bunch of cases called The Blacklist. And just the way he thinks as a criminal rather than as a prosecutor or as somebody of the law,
Mhm.
it's a very interesting way of playing a role reversal. And I wonder how much that is done because we don't actually get to see a lot of that behind the scenes commentary from many of these investigators or psychologists.
Well, if you a really good series to watch to go over exactly what you're asking is Mindhunter, which was based off of the book by John Douglas, who was one of the first FBI profilers back in the 60s and up into the late 60s, 70s, and maybe even into the 80s. They're the ones that went around the country and were interviewing serial killers and trying to understand them so they can build that's where we got profiling from. Profiling killers, all types of killers, profiling sexual assault perpetrators, all that kind of stuff. And so they one of their favorite guys to study was Ed Kemper. And if you don't know who Ed Kemper is, this man was so sadistic and evil when it came to killing that he decapitated his own mother and I believe his aunt or grandmother. And he decided to have relations with the neck area, but he did it to humiliate her because she was so abusive to him as a child. Now, Ed Kemper was known as the co-ed killer. If you've heard of that, that's Ed Kemper. So what he was doing is that he would murder young co-eds, college girls on campus, and it was almost like every time he was killing his mother. And finally, when he killed his mother, he was done. And he this is his attitude, and I love it's weird because Ed Kemper, if you could look up a picture of him, this man was over 7 feet tall and about maybe pushing 400 pounds. This guy was not small. So if you could imagine, there were women police or prison guards around him that he befriended and they loved him because he was a likable guy. And he would sit down with John Douglas and these FBI profilers and tell them about his crimes and how he felt, why he did what he did, and things like that. And he would even laugh about making jokes. I mean, he even said that he hated blood because it was so messy and a pain in the butt to deal with. I was just like, oh, okay. Sorry that they ruined your carpet. You know what I mean? But it's just like that was kind of his attitude. But he was actually really intrigued why they wanted to know about him. So he was willing to spill everything. And they got a lot of information from Ed Kemper. And there was another big serial killer that they worked with. And I can't remember the name off the top of my head for some reason, but yeah, that's what they did. They went around the country and they started creating this I guess program and like kind of a textbook on how to profile violent criminals from all walks of crimes, from sexual assault down to murders, serial killers, probably pedophilia and all that kind of stuff. So that kind of legwork that they did then has really helped us understand. And maybe that's why we don't have so many serial killers today as well, is because maybe we're catching them a little earlier than normal and not letting them do this 30-year span of killing. They're getting caught at a younger age because maybe they got caught stealing a car or something. Who knows? But maybe we're catching them before they get that final tip over the edge, and then once they're downhill, there's no going back. They're just going to do what they do until they're caught or dead.
Do you think they want to get caught?
No, I don't think they want to get caught, but every serial killer has an ego. They're narcissists. They love to taunt and toy with the police, the media. I mean, you saw Zodiac do it. You saw a Smiley Face Killer do it. I mean, they do it all the time, and they love it. They love that kind of cloak and dagger where they're hiding in plain sight, but they send, so it could be your neighbor sending these letters to the San Francisco Chronicle with the Zodiac sign on it. You don't know. So it's like it's almost like you start looking at each other like, could it be you? Could it, you're looking at everybody's face and just like trying to, really try and make sense of it all and put a face to a crime and get somebody caught so everybody can have that sense of safety again. Because, you heard back in the day when serial killers were running amok, everyone was locking their doors. You always hear, oh, we used to keep our doors unlocked at night. No, we don't dare do it. We keep lights on so people think we're home. And it's crazy how some of the hype of serial killers and stuff kind of gave this boogeyman mentality to people. And now it's like we're scared of the boogeyman. But, I luckily it's not as prevalent as it was, at least that we're aware of, than it was. But I don't know. What's scary though is a lot of these Dexter copycat criminals were teenagers. That's what's scary to me. And that could be a whole other topic about teenage mental health. And maybe you shouldn't let your teenagers watch that kind of show. It's just throwing it out there.
Well, I mean, you got to realize, though, I think, and I'm going to sound ancient and antiquated here, but I think with social media, with video games, and even children's television, where, there is no consequence for kids. The adults are the dummies. I remember watching my daughters watch a lot of Disney shows, and it was like the minute you became an adult, you were stupid, and the kids had all the answers and could figure things out better than adults. And I think because there's not a lot of consequence and they don't know consequence very much anymore, that these kids don't think that there is punishment that goes along with it.
I know. I feel like we're creating a bunch of little a bunch of little sociopaths, like have no empathy, like whatever. It's like, no, when you kill somebody, they don't come back like they do in the video game. That's not how it works.
Well, and like I said, I might be sounding antiquated there, but I'm not blaming video games whatsoever. Yeah, I think it comes down to parents. It really does come down to parents, not the video games. Judas Priest or Iron Maiden or Ozzy Osbourne never killed anybody with their music. Okay, I mean, like we suffered through in the 80s with all those accusations. We're going to get to more true crime. Winnie Schrader is here from her podcast, History, Mayhem, and Merlot. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, Dirty Filth, we're going to turn things over to you for a couple of minutes here while Winnie and I enjoy the 5-minute break. And hello, Dirty.
Hi, Dave. Hi, Winnie. Hi, everybody else. Hope everyone's having a good night. Speaking of, excuse me, speaking of serial killers and junk, I never really got into the big serial killer thing when it was popular. I read a lot about that stuff years ago. I guess one of the most interesting serial killers I ever read about was a guy named Carl Panzram. And I think Carl was born in, I don't know, 1870 something. 1 second here. 1891 he was born. And the guy was serial killer, arsonist, robber, everything under the sun. He grew up in a terrible household. He was beaten by his parents, if I remember correctly. Nonetheless, I think he even, at one point, I think he robbed one of the future presidents, if I remember correctly. Nonetheless, though, I always thought he was an interesting guy because he just had an absolute hatred for human beings themselves. And I remember something to the effect of his. There was a journalist that ended up talking with him and everything. And hello, Doug Shelby. And he mentioned something along the lines of he wished that the human race had one neck and he could have his hands around their throat. The guy just absolutely hated humans. Carl Panzram. If you ever want to look up a crazy guy who's I guess he was relatively smart and whatnot too. Like, I guess a lot of the serial killers aren't just complete lunatics, aside from, what they do. But yes, Carl Panzram. He was a hobo at one point. He just traveled the rails and he was abused by other hobos and everything. I think at one point he stole a boat, went to Africa, found a guide, killed the guy, chopped him up and fed him to alligators, if I remember correctly. Yes. So I don't know. Nobody ever talks about that guy. It's always the popular dudes. So I think this is going to be the gargoyle for my spare cartoon here. Yeah, there was a movie, if I remember correctly, about Carl Panzram. He spent time in Leavenworth and also I gotta grab my water here. Spent time in Leavenworth and on the Rock, and I think he had conversed with the Birdman of Alcatraz or something to that effect. I can't quite remember. It's been a while since I looked into all this stuff, but it was interesting, anyways. So it's a good read. I'm fairly certain there was a movie, and there was also another movie called Henry: Portrait of a Serial Killer. So, hello, Kira. Hey, Bob. Look at these hands, Bob. Look at them. Remember, Bob, if I die before you, I will have these hands severed and pickled and mailed to you. Maybe I'll get them in a thumbs up position if possible. I'm pretty sure they can do that. Cats in space, yes. The gargoyle's he's a little more reserved than the gremlin. Little gremlin story for everybody today. He somehow I think it's the gremlin. I'm fairly certain it was the gremlin, but he somehow managed to pee all over the inside. We get this little like container thing with cats go in it. Anyways, it's not important. He peed all over it. It was an absolute mess, and so I bailed out the last second and let Mrs. Filth deal with it. Whoops, dropped my pen. But I hope everyone's having a good night. It's always nice when Dave brings on Winnie, and also Dave. We'll have to get Dave on again. He's been on for a little while. Dirty Filth makes paintbrushes from his hair. You know, maybe my arm hair, but I wouldn't sacrifice my chest hair for that kind of stuff. That's quality. Well, I guess it'd be quality brushes. A little bit of blue on here because the Space Frog suits are kind of a teal color, but these don't really work out well on regular paper because I'm so sloppy with the brushes. Yes. But anyways, Dave, Saturdays, 2 o'clock. Saturdays, 2 o'clock p.m. Pacific. Yeah. Come watch me draw cartoons if you're not in the forest.
I think it's a good idea.
Me too. Okay. Have a good night, everybody.
All right. All right. Dirty Filth, everybody. How exciting is that? Big shout out to the preacher who is here. How you doing, preacher? Hope you're having a good night. Peppa H, how are you? Eva, nice to see you. And who else has joined us here? Polly Rotterman, nice to see you. I think we're caught up. Thank you to our super chatters tonight. We have Andrew. We have Kitty Cattywack. Thank you. Luscious Jules for becoming a member of our YouTube channel. So thank you very much for that. And don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Why? We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially play hour number 2 of the show coming up right now. Here comes hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott, as we are taking a trip down the true crime road with Winnie Schrader coming up here momentarily. But first, we want to say hello to everyone tuning us in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Rotospin, or I totally screwed that up. Rhodopsin. Rhodopsin is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Now we bring in Winnie Schrader. She is the host of the great podcast called Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot, telling about the latest true crime stories that enlighten and intrigue her audience each and every time. Winnie, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me on. I was having fun during the break. They're like, what's the most prolific serial killer that's never been caught? And I would have to say Jack the Ripper, because of the whole allure behind it all. He only killed like 4 women, I believe, but he never got caught. Nobody knows who this man, who he really was. There was been bandied about so many suspects on who the Jack the Ripper was, all the way down to H.H. Holmes, the Devil in the White City, with the murder castle and the Chicago's World Fair, who literally created a hotel of horrors that had trap doors and it would gas the women and knock them out and put them down the chute. I mean, it was nuts, but he's even been bandied about as being Jack the Ripper. Tumblety, who was a doctor. That's why I think Jack the Ripper is probably the most prolific, because of how long the unknown has been. But I'm sure there's a lot of serial killers out there that have killed many women and not been caught, but they're not leaving the serial killer trademark of a letter or a calling sign or a moniker. So it's hard to really gauge if there's a serial killer out there that hasn't been caught because we don't know. There's no way to tie the cases together. So that's why I think he was kind of the most prolific because of the notoriety of it all and how well known he is and how long this cold case has lasted. And we still don't know. Over 200 years or whatever it's been, we still don't know the identity of Jack the Ripper. We probably will never know.
There is two of them for me. Number
Mhm.
one, I am totally intrigued about the legend of the smiley face killers. Whether they're real or whether it's coincidence. I mean, there's still great debate over that. But here's a case that's never been said that it was a serial killer, except I know deep down in talking to a journalist friend of mine in Vancouver who believes, who has talked to police officers who believe other, they just can't come out and say it because they don't want to
Right.
scare the public. And that
Mhm.
was for a long time in the 90s and 2000s, there were these feet that were washing up on the shores of British Columbia, Washington State, Oregon, and even in California.
Feet?
And they were still
Ugh.
in shoes. And a
Oh.
lot of people believe, this is a case for you to look into. It's actually very
Yeah.
intriguing. All of these cases were said to be people suiciding themselves. Okay.
Mhm.
And the interesting part about it is a lot of these people, the parents of these victims that were found, were saying that their family members were not suicidal at all,
Mhm.
and they just kind of vanished into thin air, only months, years later to have their feet wash up on the shore. And the reason why the feet were washing up on the shore is because when they went into the ocean and they sunk down and the fish fed off of them, usually by the time the femur disconnected from the knee, if the foot was say in a running shoes float. So the foot, not having any weight at this time, would float up and eventually make its way to shore. Now, once
Ugh.
again, Vancouver police and other police departments felt that this was just, people taking their own lives. But there are many out there who believe that it is an actual serial killer case, and they just did not want to alert the public because they had so few clues regarding these people who vanished.
Right. Yeah, that is strange. And it's funny because my last Sunday's episode, I did kind of a missing in masses thing. Like, how does like a group of people go missing? And like you said, they committed a self-harming event. Well, who would cut off their own feet for that? No, you would do that.
Well, the
But if you were
fish
to
and the fish and the
yeah,
crustaceans cause the feet to disconnect from the body. Like it's like these people jumped into, like, say they jump off a bridge and you never see the person again. Well, eventually, if the body sinks, then
I guess unless maybe they had there's no sign of any type of weighted foot down like a chain or anything around these ankles. I guess
no,
it could come off. Okay,
no.
because I was gonna say like most people nobody wants to drown. That's like my fear of how I'm gonna die is drowning. To me, I can't watch movies that are underwater and like people are struggling to breathe. It gives me anxiety. I can't watch
Me
it.
too.
Oh gosh, like Dave wants to watch all these movies like that are like what was that movie Crawl with the alligators that
Nope.
during the hurricane that got them into the houses, and I'm like, oh no, I can't watch this. I literally can't breathe when they can't breathe, so it's not good for me to watch it. But that would be like the worst way to try and take yourself out. But like you said, if they are jumping off of a bridge, but you would think as many feet there washing up, and sure that somebody would have noticed people jumping off a bridge at some point.
Well, I mean, and that's exactly it. But is it getting harder now for serial killers to do what they do? Because everything is being filmed these days, whether it's traffic cameras, whether it's security cameras, whether it's people with their phones just happen to be randomly taking a video. Everything is
Right.
on film these days. You cannot get away from it. And do you think because of that, people are more cautious in what they're thinking and doing?
I would say so. One of the most recent things that have been coming, you've been seeing a lot of documentaries coming up on the Delphi murders. And that's a clear case of using technology, even though these two young, I believe they were 13, two young girls were murdered. And there's some strange circumstances around their death too. But they were filming, I think they were doing Snapchat or something, or recorded a video. And as they're walking, you could see a man approaching them on this old railroad bridge. And as he gets closer, uh, yep, Julie Dawn, he was railroaded. Yeah, there's some to say that he did not commit it. He's not the bridge guy, as they call him. But it recorded the man's voice saying down the hill. And so that's all we could go on. We couldn't really make out any facial features on the video. So it's like, okay, who is this person? So everybody's looking for this bridge guy. They put out a sketch of what this man could possibly be. Everybody's looking for this guy. Typical Midwest town. This happened in Delphi, Indiana. And any Midwestern town, you got a guy who's slightly overweight, probably a goatee or some facial hair, wears a hat, wears a Carhartt zip up jacket, the typical Midwestern look. And yes, I know it's very haunting. Knowing that just a few moments after that video was taken, those two young girls' lives were taken. But so the town's looking for him, and then as they're doing some more investigating and stuff, they come out with a whole completely other sketch of a possible suspect, and the man looks completely different. He looks 30 years younger than the original composite sketch. So the town is just not knowing what is going on, but then this Richard Allen, somehow he gets brought into the mix because I think he actually came forward with some information, because they were asking for people who may have been on the trails that day if they had any information, and he happened to say he was, but the time he said was a different time, but it ended up he was there at the same time. It's so confusing, but basically they arrested him and charged him with the murders. And they were literally torturing this man in prison. They were putting him in solitary confinement. They were giving him sleep deprivation. I mean, they were literally trying to force a confession out of him, which he eventually did. And he thinks, he's like, I don't know. I may have done it. I don't know. I did it. He even told his wife, he goes, yeah, I did it. I killed those girls. She's like, no, you didn't. He goes, I did. He goes, I don't know what else to say. I did it. And it's like he's not mentally there anymore. So I don't know if he's just gotten to the breaking point where mentally he's just broken now, and he doesn't even look like the same man that went into prison. If you look at a before and after, it's shocking. But if you want to watch a really good documentary on the Delphi murders, a new one just came up on Hulu. I don't know if it's the Impact series, but you can look up anything about the Delphi murders and you'll find it. But that is a crazy case because there's also speculation of occult type practices of the way these girls were found, their bodies were positioned. They think it could be part of Odianism. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of that. but it's kind of a pagan form of like a Wiccan for the Scandinavian culture. So like the Vikings and that kind of it's called Odianism. And I guess how the girls' bodies were positioned, and they're very nature-esque type of a religion. So like trees are very important, and they like sticks were placed on the bodies a specific way, and like their bodies were pointing to a specific tree. So they don't know really what happened, but the only person, I mean, they basically closed the case and said that it's Richard Allen. But there are people that are saying, no, I think there's something behind this. And his lawyer has been pushing this Odianism thing. And he's been really doing a lot of due diligence and studying and researching up on this religion to see if there's something more he can do with this, maybe for an appeal, to try and see if we can get some more evidence and more, maybe some, experts in there that deal with culture and cults and ritualistic traditions when it comes to these things. Because, I mean, clear case, another one is the West Memphis 3. I don't know if you've ever heard of the West Memphis 3 down in West Memphis, Arkansas. The three little boys were found brutally mutilated and murdered, hogtied, and everyone thought it was a satanic ritualistic kill. This was during the 1993 Satanic Panic. You had Metallica out there. Everyone was saying all this music's going to cause these kids to turn to Satan. And I mean, there was just this huge influx during the late 80s and early 90s of Satanic Panic. And it cost these three teenage boys, almost the majority of their life in prison. One was set to be put on death row and be put to death via injection, but they ended up taking the Alford plea. And if nobody knows what the Alford plea is, it's Alford versus state of North Carolina, where on paper it says you're guilty, but the state is saying they screwed up without saying they screwed up. So technically on paper you're still guilty, but they don't have enough evidence to say that you need to stay in prison, so you are set free, but you're a convicted felon. So good luck trying to get a job as a convicted murderer, but you wouldn't be in jail anymore.
Weird.
So
I've never heard of that.
Yep, Michael Peterson took it. The staircase. If anyone's seen the 9-part, God, I don't even know how many hours that thing was. A staircase case where his wife was found dead at the bottom of the stairs, lots of blood. And he was found guilty. He went to trial twice, I believe, or he tried to appeal it once. But that case was so convoluted, and to me, that's where the prosecution team really got it wrong. And they were so honed in, and they were trying to demonize his character by saying because he was bisexual, and he was looking at gay porn and meeting up with gay men. And they think that was the reason why he killed his wife. No, that doesn't make sense. It's just like some of the stuff they were trying to stick. But the one thing that they never brought up that I think was the culprit to Kathleen Peterson's death was an owl. And I know it sounds weird. But I believe an owl was the cause of her death. Not, they said he beat her over the head with this blowpoke, which a blowpoke is a long metal tube with a hole, and it has like a hook on the end. And that's what you do. Like you put it inside the coals of a fireplace and you blow in it to get the fire hotter. So you're not blowing into a fireplace with your face. It's kind of like blowing into a straw. But the way her wounds were, if anybody's ever watched it, awesome. If not, you can just, if you don't want to, dedicate like 30 hours to a true kind documentary, don't worry, you can always look it up. But the markings on her head looked odd to me. And I'm glad they brought it up into the documentary, because at the end of the documentary, they were talking about how owls, now in North Carolina, if you've never been there, I've been there many times, but even in Minnesota, we have big owls. We have owls that stand almost 5 feet tall. We have great horned owls here. And owls can be aggressive, very aggressive. I've had a stare down with one, and I did not want to fight it because I don't think I would have won. But at the time of Kathleen's death, she may have gone outside in the very front yard. So at that time of night, owls are very active, and it was mating season. So it very well at night, she was supposedly putting a Christmas decoration outside. Now, she also had a Valium in her, and she had some wine that night. She's wearing flip-flops. Now, I think what happened is the owl came in, grabbed her, attacked her head, and she started bleeding. Now, anyone who's had a head wound knows your head bleeds like a faucet. It just gushes blood. It's horrible. Well, if you have talon gashes in your scalp, it's going to bleed like crazy, because they found microscopic feathers in her hair. They're like, why does she have feathers in her hair? The medical examiner and the prosecution, they didn't even consider that as evidence. And
Weird.
the discovery of it within the defense, it was a cast aside, like a cliff note on the autopsy report. I mean, no, a human hair should not have avian feathers in it. And when you look at the wounds on the head, it does look like 3 clawed talons going down the back of her head. But I think what happened is she was bleeding so much, she slipped and she was trying to get upstairs to probably get a towel or something, because she's bleeding like crazy. She's got flip-flops. It's wood stairs and a dark hallway. She probably just slipped and fell and bled to death. But he was put away for prison for, God knows, I think he was in prison for 12 years or something, dealing with this trial and everything. I mean, and it's those are the kind of things that I like to really research as well, because how can we prevent this stuff from happening? Because one thing is really sad about the whole criminal side of things is innocent people going to jail. And if you've ever watched anything about the Innocent Project and the fight that people have to do to prove their innocence is sad at times, and how things can get so railroaded and so corrupt within a police department and the investigation that it's it doesn't bother them. They don't want a mistake, and well, this person that's behind bars, well, I'm sure they did something else bad, so good riddance. But that's not how our justice system should work. And, so that's why I like to do what I do, because I like to go through all aspects of crime, not just focusing on serial killers. But like I said, I've had people talking about the foster care system. One thing I would love to get on is family members of serial killers. How did they cope with growing up with a family member of a serial killer? Now, I've talked with Jeff Mudgett, who is the great grandson of H.H. Holmes, knowing that he in his bloodline, he's like, God, I hope that doesn't get passed down to me. But you have the Happy Face Killer now, that series that was on Hulu with Dennis Quaid. That's based on a real story. His daughter, he toyed with his daughter, and she was a daddy's girl when growing up. But Melissa, as she got older, she realized what her dad was, and he would send her letters from prison. And then she started realizing he would come home, because he was a truck driver. So he would come home with a pretty bracelet for her, or a cute little hair clip for her. Growing up, and as she got to adult, realized these were all tokens and trophies from all of his kills that he was giving to his daughter.
Oh my.
Yeah. And I'm just like, oh my God, how can you rationalize that as a child, knowing that's who your father is? And she finally cut him off, and she wrote a book, and she's actually the producer of the series with Dennis Quaid. And she's done a lot of good work helping families cope with violent family members or serial killers, Because can you imagine growing up with the last name Dahmer?
Right. Couldn't
Like,
imagine. I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we have you for another 30 minutes. Winnie Schrader is here. She got a great podcast, Mysteries, Mayhem, and Murder. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. All right, we're clear.
Thanks, Paramarv. I appreciate the links you're popping up there. Yeah, I also do tarot readings. That's what I was doing at the Palmer house all weekend. I was doing tarot readings while everyone else was ghost hunting. But yeah, and that's another thing too. I think that helps with my true crime is that I'm an empath, so I can kind of sense a little bit more with these serial killers and kind of see a layer of them that they don't think I know about. And it's crazy because there's times where I watch true crime documentaries and I'm like, oh, he's so guilty. I can sense it. And it comes out they are. But but it's just like, I don't know. It helps. I think it helps me give a better grasp and understanding and maybe help my public understand a little bit of criminology in a different, like look at it a different way. And not to empathize with criminals, but maybe just kind of get a better understanding of where they're coming from. 'Cause like I said, I was shocked when I found out that almost 65% of kids that go through the foster system end up in prison.
That's shocking.
It's sad. It's because here in America, they make it the more kids you foster, the more money you get from the government. So the more kids that you get coming through your door, the more cash you get in your pocket, and they don't take care of the kids. They let the kids run amok. And the states don't like follow up on them. So these kids are getting neglected and abused and running around the streets. Half of them run away from all their foster homes because they're not being taken care of properly. It's sad but true.
Where is
I just
Davey
want-
tonight? Usually he makes an appearance.
Oh, I don't know. He's actually working right. He broke his ankle.
No.
Oh God, it's been rough for the Schrader household. I'm not gonna lie. The July day, 4th of July, we got word out of nowhere. Dave's dad passed away. Out of
Oh,
this,
I heard about
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. So he had to rush to Chicago. So he was living like him and I have been. He's been in Illinois. I've been in Minnesota, and then he comes here. Now he's got to go back there. It's just been. And then, of course, he has to get cataract surgery. And now he broke his ankle. So I'm hoping, I'm kind of waiting for 2025 to be over with. I'm done with 2025. I was done with 2025 back in March. So I'm just waiting for 2026. It's going to be my year. That's what I say about 2025, and it ain't going that way. So shoot for the next one. Maybe that will be 2026. That's when the Minnesota Vikings will finally win a Super Bowl too.
I don't know. I mean, how do you not bring back Sam Darnold?
See, I that one really upset me because I was like, we seriously, Kirk Cousins. Basically, it was like trading a Dr. Pepper for Mr. Pibb. They're like the one and the same, except Chris Cousins cost a lot more. And I mean, he did okay for us. He just wasn't as consistent as we needed him to. But it is what it is. I just hope this year I don't know. We got Coach of the Year last year, and it's nice because right before that, Dave won. Coach Connell signed Minnesota Vikings jersey, and then he got Coach of the Year. I'm like, oh, that just went up in value. That's like my prized possession because I am a huge football fan, and I bleed purple for the Minnesota Vikings.
I
Skull.
don't have an NFL team.
Well, you're Canadian. You could go with the Vikings. All the North Dakotians do.
My daytime boss is a diehard Vikings fan.
Oh,
Like
good.
his
I was gonna
office
say-
has 2 Minnesota Vikings helmets in it. You know, he is like big time Vikings.
Yeah, you might be right, Marv.
I like a bunch of teams. I do.
too. I love the Bears because just being in the Midwest, I will never, ever, ever don a Green Bay Packer jersey. That team, never. You'll never see me as a cheesehead ever. That is like my enemy. During football season, I don't even go near Wisconsin. I don't care how close it is to me.
Damn
But-
Packers. We have about 20 seconds left. Thank you to Trucker Andrew and to Kitty Cattywhack for the great super chats. Thank you for Luscious Jewels for joining our membership on YouTube. And don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out radio store. We got great swag there. There's nothing ugly there. I promise you. You can actually wear our stuff out in public and be proud of it. Here we go. The next half hour. We're in the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hey, we want to say to all of you that our what am I trying to say here? I'm trying to say too much. Our podcasts are always free on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Final time tonight from the great podcast, Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot. Winnie Schrader is here talking true crime. And Winnie, we're going to get some audience questions here for you, if you don't mind.
Oh, for sure. I love questions.
We're going to head to Israel, where Polly is listening in.
Okay.
Serial killers. Is it a DNA component that causes the extreme lack for human empathy, or other than possible dysfunctional family issues?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I think you can be predisposed. I mean, all types of behaviors can be genetically passed down. And, narcissism is one of them. So those traits can cause you to become a serial killer. But like I said, it's usually some triggering event. It's almost like an autoimmune disease. Once the switch gets flipped, it's hard to turn off. But what's the event that flips it? Could it be losing a family pet that a child was close to losing a parent in a traumatic way? I don't think there really is an answer. But I think there is kind of a combination, because the only serial killer that I know of that had somewhat a normal upbringing was Ted Bundy. He said that his childhood was normal. He was never abused. His mother was nice to him. I don't think his father was around, so that might have had something to do with it. But he was showing some weird type of sadistic behaviors as a young child. Now, if he would have been taken seriously and taken to a professional at that age, will we have had all the victims of Ted Bundy in the future? Because I believe when he was a young child, he was standing by the side of the bed with his aunt or mother. I can't remember which one, but he had like a large kitchen knife in his hand. And he was like real young, like 6, 7 years old. He was just standing there with this knife. And it's like, no 6 or 7-year-old should know that, but what, except cutting meat or something, but not humans. But yeah, I think it could be a combination of the two. It's really hard to say unless you really look at, I think, and it's also an individual basis too. Each individual is different. So I think you just got to take it case by case and situation by situation to really understand the DNA of a serial killer.
Let's go to another question. Let's go next to Joe in California. Do most serial killers kill women or men?
Statistically, it's mostly men. I'm sorry, men killing women. Most of the victims of serial killers are women. And unfortunately, it's the women that nobody really cares about. And those are the prostitutes and stuff. These are women that are just tossed to society as garbage. And serial killers look at them as such. So they're kind of the I guess the typical target for a serial killer would be a prostitute or something like that, because they're easy to pick up and they're easy to discard, and nobody's gonna miss them, right? That's what they think. And that's where that whole Gilgo Beach case comes into play, which I am gonna cover in an upcoming episode because I find that Gilgo Beach case pretty interesting because the original girl that they were trying to find, they thought they found, they ended up finding like 11 other victims in the same area, and they just pieced this all together and they caught the guy. So it's a pretty cool case. I'm going to cover on a future episode. So make sure you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can find me on YouTube at Winnie Schrader, or just look up Mysteries Mayhem and Merlot on YouTube. You can find me there too. But yeah, I think it's now. When you look at serial killers, it's mostly men, but there have been women serial killers. Now, mostly women serial killers will kill men. Now, if it's men killing, men will also kill other men. And usually when that's in play, it's because there's some type of homosexual tendency, like the Jeffrey Dahmers, the John Wayne Gacy's of the world. That part kind of ties the men and the men together. So, but I would say statistically, it's mostly men killing women. Women are the number one victims of serial killers.
The only female serial killer in modern day that I know of was Eileen Wuornos.
Mm-hmm.
Why are there not as many female serial killers?
Oh, I think there are. We're just too cunning and slick to get caught. No, the women. This is what women do. Okay, most women serial killers, and a woman's weapon of choice has always been poison. Now, you always hear of these black widowers poisoning their husbands. There's actually quite a few cases of that. I just think that it's not as sexy in the headlines. It's not this woman's body found in a ditch, strangled to death, and could it be linked to this killer? I mean, a lot of times when it comes to poisoning victims, they don't know they're poisoned until they really look for it. I wonder how many husbands are 6 feet under with arsenic that in their blood, in their bodies, that the doctors didn't even know was there because they didn't think to check for it. Because a lot of times poisons, there has to be a specific reason for them to check for a poison. And a lot of times by the time they're dead, it's too late. So, but yeah, Eileen was kind of an odd one out. She used a gun. And I think I understand why she did what she did. I don't think it wasn't that she wanted the thrill of the kill. She was getting vengeance. She had a rough life. At a very young age, she was being sexually abused by her father, by her uncles. She was passed around like she was a piece of trash. She's been raped many times by men. She had to turn to prostitution and drugs. So she's had a very rough life. And I think she finally snapped, and a guy was getting a little too rough with her, and she shot him. And I don't think I think it was more of a power trip for her. You know what I mean? Like, kind of like a Thelma and Louise type of power trip. Like, I'm a woman, I got power, I could take you out. I won't let you hurt me anymore type of attitude. But yeah, I mean, technically she's a serial killer because she continued to do it because she was sick and tired of men being dirtballs to her and trying to hurt her, take advantage of her, and she just got fed up. And, so that and maybe that's what can trigger a woman to become a serial killer. Just being fed up and just kind of snapping. Now, you also have serial killers as mothers with Munchausen syndrome. There have been mothers who have had multiple children, and why they're allowed to have more than multiple children with dying at a very young age, and mysteriously they keep having children die of SIDS. Come to find out the mother was actually murdering their children, and they were getting the sympathy and what they get from the whole Munchausen by proxy syndrome. There's the cases like that, that you could tie, I guess, to some type of serial killer with women. So it has with women, it has a real strong emotional tie to it, whereas in men, it's more of a power and an ego thing with them. Like, they can be powerful and take a life from somebody weaker than them. And women are kind of like, they want to be stronger, and it's like we want the opposite. So it could very well be that's why maybe with women we just don't notice the patterns as much as we do with men, because it's not as grandiose and, like I said, sexy for headlines.
Very true. Very true. Let's get to another question here. This one from Jaquetta. How do you feel about Squid Games in South Korea? Maybe giving killers ideas?
Oh, I'm sure it's giving many killers ideas. I didn't watch it because I think the premise is just
I love Squid Game.
I know, but I'm just like, it's like I watched Hunger Games, and I feel like it's kind of the same thing. You just kind of fight to the end. Yeah, but I mean, I assume that would give somebody some ideas, unique ways of trying to kill people. Be strategic about it, because that teaches you strategy and how you can manipulate your surroundings to cater to your sadistic needs. So that very well could give killers ideas. And what's sad is that stuff is like available for teenagers. And, if my kids want to watch anything like that, I'm watching it with them, because I don't want them coming at knowing stuff that I don't know nothing about. And if I found out my kids were watching something like Squid Game and I found out what it was about, we would be having a very long talk that night with. So, but yeah, I'm sure it does. It has to.
One thing that I would wonder about, and as you've been talking tonight, it's kind of approached my mind a couple of times, is it, we know there are copycats out there on everything. Is it still sexy in a grotesque way to be a serial killer, or is mass killings a lot more sexier because of the immediate attention that you get and the thrill of it all, seeing your name all over social media, seeing how many people you affected, how many people you unalived, or whatever term you want to use? Because serial killer, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Whereas the gratification of people knowing your name and you becoming insta famous is maybe something that plays along with that narcissism that you were talking about earlier due to social media.
Yeah, and that could very well be. Yeah, like the mass shootings and stuff are more sexier because they get out there quicker. You can live stream. I mean, how are you going to live stream a serial killer happening? A killing in the moment happening. It's not going to happen, right? And and that very well could be why we have more mass shooters now than serial killers, because you're not going to get that instant gratification that you would with a mass shooting. like you said, during mass shootings, people live stream that stuff. And, it just, I feel like that is probably plays a huge factor in why serial killers probably have kind of dwindled off. Plus, we're so desensitized to that stuff. Seriously, like a 13-year-old boy, if they saw a body chopped up, they'd be like, oh, whatever. Like it doesn't faze them anymore because of all the stuff they see now within video games and movies and all that. That stuff isn't shocking to them anymore. So the Jeffrey Dahmers of the world don't sound that crazy. I mean, have you watched Five Nights at Freddy's? I mean, this is about
Horrible show.
animatronic. My son loves it. I loved going to the movie theater with him when we watched it because he's a huge FNAF fan. And him and Dave have kind of these weird, nerdy kind of horror sci-fi, like they both love aliens, Godzilla, Five Nights at Freddy's. But like, like having stuff like that, like it's actually like supposed to be like human bodies inside of this thing. And like kids aren't fazed by it. They're like human bodies are encapsulated into these animatronic robots. And they're like, yeah, it's just part of the legend and lore. And I'm like, what? And you guys are okay with it? It's like it doesn't bother them anymore. So I think, yeah, that could very well play a huge part in why serial killers aren't as the cool kids anymore. They don't sit at the cool table anymore. Now it's all the other type of people who can get instant notoriety for it. I mean, you even see it with these flash mobs where they fight in big groups and they attack innocent people. But they're getting insta famous. They're, one big thing was that World Star. I mean, they saw people like literally like shooting other people and putting it up as entertainment. And these kids, and like the whole thing the goal was to get on World Star. And the more crazy crap you did, the more views and the more likes you got. So it's just feeding into that ego, that narcissistic ego. So you wonder why we have these mass shooters, because then they're like, wow, let me go viral. That's the key word. They want to go viral. And, these little finding a body here, there, every couple weeks ain't going to do it anymore. We are an instant gratification society, and serial killers just don't work fast enough for what apparently the public's needs are. So that could, very well also be a part of it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was thinking with the question as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the social media addiction out there is definitely something that young people today are absolutely wanting. I mean, never before in our history, granted, YouTube is still relatively young at under 20 years old, but I mean, so many kids now, they don't want to go to college, they don't want to go get an education, they don't want to do great hardworking blue collar work, they want to be influencers, and they don't want to be musicians, they don't want to learn the saxophone or guitar, they want to learn a microphone and how to edit videos. I mean, God, my 12-year-old son can edit videos better than I can.
My son, I know, my 13-year-old, he makes stop motion Godzilla videos off of TikTok and CapCut. I'm like, what? I mean, I use video editing for my podcast, but I do it as a more educational way. Like, I'm awesome at like slideshows. I'm so glad my visual skills in school are finally paying off. Because back in the day, man, we had like transparencies and microfiche, and now these kids have a full video studio right at the fingertips. And
during the summer holidays, my son's really into dinosaurs right now. And he literally created a still frame video. It took him hours, but he made a still frame video of dinosaurs, attacking each other and, eating one another and all of this. And I'm like, dude, how did you do that? He's like, I was just bored. So I figured I'd teach myself.
We're creating future Spielbergs of the world,
Right.
which I'm fine with. But let's create those type of kids and not, serial killers and Ted Bundys and stuff. That's not what we want to create for our future. And
You got that
so
right.
yeah, seriously, parents, really pay attention to what your kids are watching and are influenced by. And I don't mean TV shows. Look at their YouTube history because that's where
Oh,
you're
yeah.
going to find the naughty stuff.
Let's go to Joe here. Have they ever been able to use DNA to find the victims of the shoes floating up on the shore, people? They have. They've identified almost all the feet, if not all of them, that have washed up. I believe there's only been a couple in California that have washed up, but they mostly have been in the Vancouver, British Columbia area, along with into Washington State. And they've all been ruled as suicides. I don't believe that. I don't believe it for a second. Do I have any proof? No. But if you read between the lines, there's something more to it. But yeah, they have been able to find the majority of the feet, who they were as persons. Jeremy is asking, what made Richard Allen kill those two girls after living a normal life?
And that's the one thing we haven't really gotten an answer on. Like, why did he do it? He can't really. He's just like, I did it. And what caught him, they found a spent, it wasn't a spent casing. They found, it was a bullet that he may have like pulled the thing back, but it popped out. It was never fired. So it was just a raw casing sitting underneath one of the girls' bodies. And supposedly the markings on it matched his gun, which I don't even know how they came across that. Supposedly he was on this one lady's radar that worked for the DA's office, I think it was. So she's like, you might want to look into him. And they found a gun in his house and they said it matched. So that was basically the only thing that tied him to the crime scene. And it wasn't even a spent bullet. So it was kind of weird. But I honestly, I don't think he did it. And if he did do it, it was probably a lapse in maybe he didn't have a lucid moment. Maybe he went psychotic, had a episode. Because like he can't even really distinctively say how he did it. And the weird thing is like I said, how the girls were placed. But one girl was naked, but the other girl was wearing the other girl's outfit and clothes. So it's like, it doesn't seem like that would be a reason for him to do what he did, because there was no sexual assault on the girls. And he said his motive was he had like a sexual desire to rape them or something. But they were never sexually assaulted. It was just one girl was undressed. She was completely naked, and the other girl was wearing the other girl's outfit, and that was it. So it just, there's something missing with the whole Delphi murder case. And I'm going to still kind of keep following along and seeing what his Richard Allen's attorney is coming up with when it comes to the Odianism research that he's doing, hopefully to put that into an appeal for him.
For people who may not know who Richard Allen is, please describe who he is.
Richard Allen, he worked as a pharmacy tech at a CVS, quiet guy, lived a normal blue collar working, family, his wife and kids. And, he's just typical Midwestern, never had an issue really. I think he had a couple minor issues with the law, but nothing to say he would kill 2 13-year-old girls. So, and everybody at his job, everybody who encountered him said he was a friendly guy, and he was just kind of a quiet, just average Joe that lived in Delphi, Indiana. Really, there was nothing to say that he was the one that did it. And when people found out that he confessed, they couldn't even believe that he confessed to it. Like, why? It can't be Richard. Like, they couldn't believe it themselves. Even his wife cannot. believe it. He's on the phone saying, I killed them. And she's like, I know you didn't do this. This is not
Weird.
you. And he's like, I don't
Weird.
know. I think I did it. So it's almost like the police have convinced him that he's done it.
So weird. Winnie, thank you so much for coming back on Spaced Out Radio.
Thank you.
We love it when you're here. Anytime you want to come on, just let us know. Winnie Schrader and her great podcast, Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot. Swamp Dweller
Thank you.
is next to kick off hour number 3. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much, Win.
Oh, you're welcome. And I'll have Dave send you a StreamYard link for you to join him 7 p.m. on Thursday. And if you could write up kind of a synopsis of what your story is so he can kind of create an intro and stuff so he has something
Sure.
to go off of, I'll shoot you
Sure.
over the email address to send that to him, okay?
Is that in like 2 days from now, Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, this Thursday at 7 p.m. Central.
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
will.
Can you just send me a reminder on Facebook to do that for him?
Yep, I will
Like,
shoot that over to you
DM me?
along with his email. Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Winnie Schrader, everybody. We love her around here. We do. I'll be right back. Quick reminder to everybody that next week I'll be taking the week off to redo the studio a little bit. So if you don't mind, just enjoy the replays. We'll put some replays up for you. So that way you have some really cool shows to watch over that time. Big thank you tonight to Trucker Andrew and Kitty Cattywhack for our great super chats. We greatly appreciate the love, and thank you, Luscious Jules, for joining us on the YouTube membership. We really appreciate that. Thank you, bud. Can you close my door, please? To keep the noise down, because this room is soundproof. Yeah. That's my boy. Anyways, yeah. Don't forget to shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. Yes, I know the word swag is doesn't really mean what it should, but I like the term. I do. Rashid, how are you tonight? Good to see you. Thanks for coming on in. NT, how are you? Nice to see you. Excuse me. Contrary one. Nice to have you here. Robin sitting in the background, looking pretty as usual. Yes, I love my Robin Haynes. She's my Robin Haynes. Mine. Better pop this. There we go. And here we go. Here we go with the final hour of Spaced Out Radio. Hard to believe we're already here tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We got Swamp Dweller and Robin Haynes with a Crypted Q&A coming up here momentarily. But first, I want to say hello to all of you listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Rhodopsin. Rhodopsin is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. I wish I had more information on this story. It was a very brief encounter that has always stayed with me since I was young. It may not be the most eventful, but it creeped me out. It started when I was young. When I was about 6 or 7 years old, my family lived in an old house with a few dogs in South Carolina. It was far from uneventful there. I heard strange noises and saw strange lights outside our house. I was convinced the place was haunted. As it turns out, I may not have been wrong. One of the weirdest things that ever happened to me happened outside of that house. I used to go outside a lot back then. I loved being outside, and the feeling of being out there, regardless of how warm or cold it was freeing to me. But I usually came back in before it got too dark out. I didn't stay out in the middle of the night, but one day I decided to stay out just for a bit longer into the evening. It was getting around 6:30 when I finally decided to go back inside that day. But before I did, I was interrupted by something extraordinary. Above my house was this sort of hill past a road that went through a forest. Up there was a neighborhood, plenty of people living there, at least for some nowhere southern town. Up there was a strange figure. I'd say it was tall, maybe 6 feet tall, but it was hard to tell from where I was standing, and the memories had been understandably vague since I was very young. I just sat there, staggered in disbelief. A tall, pitch-black humanoid figure loomed over me just over the hill. It was blank, and just black, sort of like a shadow. It looked distorted, though, like the shadow was moving around like static TV, if that makes any sense. Me being young and confused, I was stunned. It was so bizarre. I didn't know what to do, but the door was right behind me, so I could run back into my parents at any moment. I felt safe for that reason. I waved at the creatures as it stood there, and it gave me some sort of wave back for a few seconds. I was so creeped out that chills went down my spine, my heart was pounding, and goosebumps rose on my arms. It looked human and was now acting human. It started making other motions, and the thing, honestly, kind of had a mind of its own, but also was copying my every movement. I started making other motions, and the thing just copied them every time. I even walked closer and poked behind a tree, and it pretended to do the same, even though there was no tree for it to hide behind. I was thoroughly amused. I realized I would probably seem like a madman making weird motions to anybody who saw me. I looked around to see if anybody was looking. When I looked back at the creature, it was no longer there. The way it just stood there at first and then copied my every motion later was so strange and downright creepy the more I think about it. It seems like it was straight out of a horror story or something. The start of some climactic series of events. But I never saw anything like it again. I'm sure there has to be some sort of plausible explanation somewhere out there. But until then, this is the only paranormal story that I have.
Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another spooky, crazy story. If you want more just like that, head on over to his YouTube channel, Swamp Dweller. Hit subscribe, ring that bell. Swampy kicks off hour 3 each and every night on this show. It's time for Robin. Robin Haynes, it's good to have you back here on Spaced Out Radio. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Always happy to be here. Good to hear you're taking a week off. Well deserved.
I am going to take a week off because for radio people, I don't have a lot of time to do what I want to do with my studio and everything. And I've got some new toys that I need to set up, and I want to redo the studio to make it a little bit more modern, especially for our camera side of everything. You know, because we do broadcast this show live on YouTube and X and LinkedIn and Twitch while we're doing the radio side. And you have to try and find that happy medium. Now on radio, I think we sound great because you can't really see us on the radio. You can only hear us. But to try and balance a happy medium, there's just things that I want to do with the studio just to make it look a little bit more up to date. Because I really haven't done a change in it in a number of years. So I think it's time.
Well, I think that's great.
I think so.
It's going to be
totally
nice. I can't wait.
So. Yes. We had an interesting time out at Flight 21.
I know. Did you get my message about Saturday?
I did. The only reason why we didn't call you is because we had Merle and Lee Strauss here with us. And so we had a big team go out, and we actually went out there for about 8-9 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was.
I had sent you that message because I went out of town and I was going to be on a flight and I wasn't sure if I'd be there in time. And I thought, well, I will be later on. I got stuck at the Atlanta airport. I didn't think I'd ever get out of there.
Well, you did.
Yeah. They had alarms going off, police going all over the place. They froze all the flights. It was great.
Well, I could tell you this. We found numerous footprints.
Good.
Our trail cam did not work. It failed right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And Tim James took the camera home and immediately tested it out to see if it was the trail cam or that he was doing something wrong. And he did the exact same thing, and it caught pictures.
Yeah, they zap it. They used to zap the living tar. I had security cameras at the one house, and the other one I had the trail cam. And I had somebody that had made a birdhouse to put the trail cam in so it would disguise it. They would take it, they would zap it, and then they would go and grab sticks and they'd bury the whole thing. Every time they did something to it. I got like 2 pictures, one of a thumb and the other of a breast of a female. And that was it. Other than that, they just knocked them out every time. And they took out the security cameras. They took them both out at one time. We got those replaced, and they made it about 2 weeks before they finally took them out again. They don't even have to touch them. They just push enough energy into them to blow them.
Well, it was very interesting. At the end of the night, and I'm going to bounce around here a little bit, but the end of the night I found very interesting because Lee and Tim had heard something big kind of shifting through the trees while we were packing up. And Lee is an incredible investigator. Like I'd never investigated with Lee before. Lee Strauss from our Element 115 show and our UFO Max show on our Spaced Out Radio YouTube channel. And the guy is absolutely incredible out in the field.
Excellent.
Absolutely incredible. And you hear him all of a sudden talking to, like, he's talking to a kitten or a puppy dog. And he's like, "Oh, hi, how are you? I hope you don't mind, but we'd like to really see you. Would you like to come out and say hi to us? How are you today?" Like, it was just...
That's so great.
It was phenomenal. Phenomenal. And here's where it happened. So where we put the marbles and tried to create the other gifting site, they experienced a very, very large presence in that area. Tim was very much on the point where he felt he wanted to walk in there. He said he did not feel any fear. He did not feel any danger or anything. He said it almost felt like they were inviting him in.
Yeah. They probably were. What they do is they get in your head and they make you think it's your own thoughts, but it's really their thoughts. And they're kind of like leading you where they want you to be. I've had that happen before. And they're not, I mean, I don't think he was trying to be harmed at all. I mean, you got to be careful with the bad ones when they do that. But there's, I've never picked up anything bad in your area. But they will, but they make you think that it's your idea, but it's actually they're in control.
Yeah, and he said that he was really debating whether or not to go in there. And now I have talked to researchers who have had that same thing happen, and they've tested it out, and they said that they have felt that like they are surrounded by 3, 4, 5 creatures, and these creatures will reach out, touch them, okay, and it's very peaceful and very loving, and it's very inviting in. And I said to Tim, I said, I was going to talk to you about this tonight. I said this on last night's show because he's kind of kicking himself in the butt that he didn't get an opportunity to do that. And, it's not that he chickened out, but he literally felt that, maybe it wasn't the time.
Yeah, it's amazing when they do it. I had an experience. It was back in Michigan, and I was in my home. It was 12:30 at night. I'm just watching TV. My kids are in bed, and all of a sudden, I had to be out in the woods. I knew a certain space I was supposed to go in the woods. I'd never been there before, but I knew how to get there, and it was like something just took over. And I called my babysitter. She came over to the house. I go out in this woods, and by now it's after 1:00. And it was like I knew where I was going. And I'm thinking the whole time, I have no idea where I'm going, but I feel like I'm being pulled there. And I'm going all over through the woods. That's how they got me back to where their nests were at. And I ended up, they told me to put my hand on the bush. I put my hand on the bush. I go through this portal and I'm standing in this place with all these nests. And then there was a male, a female, and a child there. But that's how it was for me. It was like, I knew it wasn't my own thought and I had no idea where I was going, but yet I just went with it. And all of a sudden it was like instinctively my body knew where to go. And the whole time in my head, I'm like, I have no idea where I'm at. It's the middle of the night. There's all this wildlife out and where I lived at. We had coyotes, we had wolves. We had all kinds of stuff. And I'm seeing all this stuff at night and I just keep right on going like a hot knife on butter. No idea, where to go, but yet my body instinctively knew where to take me. I'm turning this way, going that way. And it took me right there. But they do it. They get in your head and do it.
Would have you been safe?
I was completely safe. They did not try to hurt me. The female and the little girl spoke. The male didn't. He just watched me. But you have to be careful. That's where reading the energies is so important, because if it's something negative, that energy is not going to lie. So it may come off as it's being nice and encouraging, but the energies are going to come off negative anyway, and you would feel it. And that's when you don't want to go. In the case out there, I'm not picking up, even remote viewing it and doing the time rewind on it to see it. I'm not picking up anything bad. I think he would have been just fine. I do think that you had probably 4 that were cloaked there and were coming up quite close. I don't know if anybody felt any heaviness or anything, but they were definitely around you guys.
Well, we did find 4 or 5 footprints in the area.
That's great.
And so nothing was touched at the gifting site. Something had been nibbling on the hawk feather at the gifting site.
Wow.
I talked to a First Nations person yesterday who said we should remove the raven's feather from the gifting site because raven feathers are, in their tradition around here, a sign of death.
Yes, I've heard that
So
before.
we're going to get rid of the raven's feather.
Mhm.
But when we first pulled in that day, there was another feather, and this one was sticking out of a toppled over tree with the roots of the stump sticking out, and something had put a feather right in the middle of it, like it was like waiting for us. And I
Yeah.
had a good laugh with that.
Oh, yeah. Definitely
I
left so
really
you can
did.
see it.
Yeah, it was quite interesting because we could tell that nobody had been up there because you could tell by tire tracks.
Yeah.
And nobody had been up there. Now, that's not saying somebody didn't walk in, but even on the way in, there was no fresh tracks there.
Yeah. If you were able to get tracks from them there, you would have gotten tracks from one of our people.
Right.
And feathers are friendship. You really have, it's really impressive, the relationship that you're building there, because it's done on a, very good level. It's respectful, it's friendly, and look at the progress you've made over time because you're doing it the correct way. You're doing it respectfully. You're not pushing boundaries, and it's like a give and take from them and you. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it was very interesting to see how it all played out.
Oh,
And
yeah.
one of the cool things that we actually had happen is, if you remember the story that I told you and our audience, I've said it a number of times on this show, in 2023 when I saw the UFO landing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see the landing. That's incorrect. I saw it on the ground.
Yeah.
Lee actually had a Geiger counter with him. And lo and behold, I take him into that spot, and we are getting radiation spikes
Absolutely.
all around the area.
It's very possible to get them off their footprints as well. If you take those Geiger counters, let's say you had an opportunity to go up to a Sasquatch, it's going to pop that Geiger counter. As the live ones it does, and it does on the ones that have passed. And it's because their frequency is so high that that's the way it comes off, is like radiation. That's why when you have a lot of ongoing close contact with them, it's always really super important. Tell them, you know what? I have a 3D body. My body can't be around that strong of an energy. Can you pull it back a little? And they aren't going to drop it down because then they have no protection, but they will pull it back a little. They can do that because they don't think about it. That's just part of who they are, but it can do damage to us. And this is why you find researchers, whether it's with UFOs and aliens or cryptids, and you find researchers have a lot of health problems. And that's why. And no, for anybody listening, because I get asked this a lot, they do not put diseases in you. They cannot put diseases in you. But that high frequency and energy is part of their body chemistry. They are not doing it to hurt anybody, but it's part of who they are. And unfortunately, even if we are a high frequency person, we still live in a third dimensional body. And that third dimensional body cannot handle the frequency as high as what they carry. And that's before any zapping. When they zap, they're pulling it all in a ball and they're throwing it at you. But their regular body chemistry, it just radiates from them. And the Geiger counters, I know people that have taken it over their footprints and it pops it.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. So we have 3 minutes to go before we have to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Robin Haynes is with us. We're talking a little bit about Flight 21 and the weekend that was. There was a lot of spiritual activity there. We could tell that. There was a lot of spiritual activity going on, and we were able to do a little bit of communication with things. And have you ever heard a Sasquatch getting picked up on EVP?
Do you know, we tried that a couple of times, and we did get a voice that was very gargled. You know how you get that rattle because they have their, they speak out of the clavicle where we come out of the top of the throat. So it's very guttural when they talk. And we did get a couple of voices on that. We didn't try it very often. It was just something fun to try. And could we definitely say that it was a Sasquatch? No, but it certainly did not sound like a spirit. I do know of someone that did get one on an EVP though. And they knew it was a Sasquatch because they were on a trip. And I had told them the Sasquatch was going to be there and given them some information on it. And what they heard come on that EVP verified what I had said. So, it was definitely a Sasquatch, and it responded with information that only a particular Sasquatch would have known.
That is weird.
Yeah,
that
it
is
was pretty
weird. The other thing that happened that I wanted to talk to you about is, remember last week when I was telling you about the flatulence that
Yep.
we heard in the field? Well, we found poop.
That's
Now,
great.
I don't know if it was theirs or not. I'm going to, during the break, send you the pictures on your DM so you can have a good look at them. Most animals don't back their hinds into a tree to go to the bathroom.
Exactly.
They usually will just go wherever they feel because nature is their toilet.
Yep.
Okay. And this one was tucked into a tree. And I talked to one person who believed it might have been a bear, but I've talked to other people and forest people, hunters and experienced people who said, no, that's not bear. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Never seen that before. So I'm going to hit you up on the other side of the break
definitely.
regarding that. And we will talk about Sasquatch poop.
Yeah.
It is a hot button topic on this show that we call Spaced Out Radio. Robin Haynes with the Crypted Q&A returning after this is Spaced Out Radio. Your host, Dave Scott.
Get it?
1 second here, Robin.
Okay.
So I just sent you 5 pictures.
Okay. Usually theirs looks really long. I haven't noticed it that looks like that. Now there's one piece in there that's a maybe. But again, it would depend on, are they constipated where they're going a little bit at a time? The ones that I've seen, and I collected one sample, and it wasn't in little balls like that. It looks just like ours, only much, much bigger.
Well, if you look at the picture of Tim, where he's reaching inside like this little tree area.
Yeah. Now that one looks long. That one looks like it's put together and it's much longer. That I would say is a possibility. But yeah, you're right. Most of them are not going to back up under the tree. It would depend on, I mean, like I said, if they were dehydrated, if they were, didn't have a lot of water in them or whatever, it might, they might go in balls like that. But that's also really pretty good size, which would lean towards them. But like I said, the ones that we had, in fact, Igor Borsev insisted I take a sample of it. And my son was out in the woods and there was one out there going to the bathroom. That's how we knew what had done it. And I went out there, I get the sample, and he's like, just put it in the freezer. And I couldn't do it. I was like, you know what? Let him have some privacy. I threw it out. I said, just give him some privacy, for heaven's sakes. Is nothing sacred. But yeah, it tends to be long. It looks just like ours. But there are times even, with our people that depending on, how much moisture in your body, sometimes you do get the little balls like that. So I certainly wouldn't rule it out because there's that one piece that looks quite long. Actually, there's 2 pieces that look long. And it looks
So
like
in your estimation, then, you think that is Sasquatch poop or still unidentified?
I think it's unidentified. And the reason I say that is now there's 2 pieces that are long, and those I would say yes. Okay? Because it looks like it's fairly big around. It doesn't look like bear poop to me, but there's some that are just round balls. You know what I mean? But they're too
Yes.
big to be deer, and a deer isn't going to have it compacted where it's going to be long like that. And so there's parts of it that you could say it was, but to me, I have to go with it. It's still unidentifiable because just because some of those pieces in there, that's not typical. It really looks like when we, believe it or not, as gross as it sounds, when we go. But like I said, you've got 2 or 3 pieces that are attached and are elongated like that. And it does look quite large around.
Yes.
Like it would be too big for anything else as far as the size around it.
Well, it makes sense.
But again, like I said, if they're dehydrated, if they haven't had a lot of water or whatever, their bowels are going to be harder and you would get just the little, or not little, but the drops
The
of
nuggets.
It,
The
nuggets.
nuggets. We'll talk about the rest of it here momentarily. Hello, Moodance Mogul. How you doing? Moodance Mongol. Our resident wannabe comedian. Love him. Love him. We got just under a minute here, Robin.
Not a problem. Yeah, but that's great. You're getting such good interaction. And I don't pick up that he was in any danger, but I think that it was trying to lead him in there. That's why it's so vital, the energy reading, because like you said, he didn't feel threatened in any way because his body was reading the
Right.
energy and it was fine.
Right.
The
Hold
bad
that
one.
thought, Robin. We're
Okay.
about to come back here. Thank you to Trucker Andrew and Kitty Cattywhack. Thank you, Jules, for becoming a new member on our channel. And don't forget, our radio store is always open, so make sure you check it on out. Here we go in 5 seconds, everybody. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hey, we want to remind all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, our archives are always free by going to YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. We say hello once again to our favorite cryptid expert. Robin Haynes is here as we are doing the Q&A, and we appreciate you coming on in, Robin. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. You guys are awesome.
All right. We teased right before the break that we were going to make this a crappy situation. Pun intended. Sasquatch poop. Now, I sent you some photos of what could be something anomalous in the droppings variety as we try and keep it polite. Your thoughts on the doo-doo?
Well, I think, I would have to say it's still unidentifiable, but there are some strong indications that it very well could be. Number one, like the way that it was placed under the tree, and the pines there. I mean, that's not an easy place for anything to be able to go to the bathroom as far as what the size of it is. The size of it, there's a very good possibility. Normally, it's very elongated. It's very much like ours, only at a bigger size. But you did have 2 or 3 pieces in there that were long like that. And like I was telling you, if they were dehydrated, if they, needed more fluids in their diet or whatever, and they were a little bit constipated, it would come out like the rest of it did. But there are a couple of pieces in there that do look very suspicious that it could possibly be.
Your thoughts on the location of the droppings, because most wild animals do not back their behinds into a tree area to make sure their feces is covered up somewhat.
Exactly. And that's what I was just going to say. It's not even, for me, it's not. Yes, it's so unusual that an animal would back up like that. It was the way it was done, because not only did it back up under that tree, it made sure that the bough of the spruce pine needles, or whatever kind of pine that is, went over the top of it. Almost like they had pulled it back, put their behind back in there, gone to the bathroom, and then let that branch come down to cover it. So they really wanted to make sure nobody knew it was there. Now, any of your animals that are out in the woods that do that generally do like a cat would do and scratch the ground around it to almost try to cover it. And I noticed from the pictures that was not done. And a Sasquatch typically does not do that. It would hide it. Absolutely would hide it. Exactly like it's done in your photos.
And here's one of the other things, too, we know isn't moose, because moose droppings look like giant chocolate-covered almonds. We know it's not bear. We know it's not cattle.
Mm-hmm.
We've been eliminating as we speak here, or as we go.
And there are, like I said, there's some of it that are balls, but when I had kids, there was a couple times you know, if the kids were sick and they got dehydrated or whatever, that's what their feces would look like. The Sasquatch typically looks like ours, only bigger, and you've got the size to it, definitely. And there are two pieces that are elongated to the point where it is definitely suspicious for it, for sure. And then you add that with the placement of it, no markings on the ground where anything was scratching at it, trying to bury it or anything like that. But whatever did it made a point of having it hidden under the boughs of that pine. So definitely suspicious. I would not, in this case, I would not rule it out that that's what it is.
All right. All right. Let's get to a couple questions from our audience here.
Okay.
Let's start off with Jay here. Have you ever been led to a portal trap from puck wedgies or by anything else out there?
I have one picture of a puck wedgie in my backyard, but it never did anything. And they're normally pretty dangerous, and they're usually in a group. And I only saw the one, and it did not try to lure me anywhere. I was taken into a portal one time, and that was through the Sasquatch. I've been asked by them multiple times to go through a portal, but I always say to them, you know, can you promise me that I can return and that it's not going to bother me? And they've told me the same thing every time. Our third dimensional bodies are not made for portals. They can't promise I would be safe or that I'd be back okay. So I try not to do that. They did lead me there. You know, just like I was telling you earlier, I mean, I was at home 12:30 at night. I had no idea to go out in the woods. I wasn't even thinking about the Sasquatch. And the next thing I know, I was so overtaken by the desire to go out there, and I knew instinctively where to go, and it led me directly to them. And they told me to put my hand on a bush. In fact, Igor Borstov has this in his book. They said, put your hand on the bush, because I couldn't go into the woods. It was a rounded area of woods out in the middle of nowhere, and it was so tight I could not get through it. And I kept saying kept telling me to go in there, and I'm like, I can't get in. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. And they said, just put your hand on the bush. So I did. I put my hand on the bush, and you know, it was really odd. I saw a lot of green or gray speckly things, silver, kind of felt like flutters in my stomach. And the next thing I know, I'm in this other place. And there was the nest and how they had it all set up, and it was quite elaborate in there. And there was a large male, a female, and a small child that was a little girl. And then when I went to leave, I said, how do I get out? Like, I can't, it's impenetrable. I can't get out. I couldn't get in. And they said, just put your hand back on the bush, which I did. And it got me right back out again. They have asked me at other times to go into portals, and I declined, because they could not promise I would be back. And I'm a mom and a grandma, you know, so I have to make sure I come back.
Let's go next to Blue Cruise. I've seen multiple photos, images online where a dogman displays a mouthful of gleaming white teeth. Is this caused by a photo image after effect, or the energy field emanating from the dogman?
That I can't tell you conclusively. I really can't. I would imagine it has to do with the energy field around them. And the other thing is, just like with our dogs, you know, our dogs chew on bones, they have dog cookies or whatever, and it does clean their teeth a little bit. Now, with cryptids, we already know the Sasquatch do not have normally really clean teeth. And the dogmen, you know, the same problem with them. But the thing is they are more canine, and that could have a lot to do with it. But as far as what you're talking about, to me, knowing what I know about them and what I've physically seen, I would say it has more to do with the energy that radiates around them, because I have seen different cryptids where that energy was so strong, it was almost like they glowed. And then there was also that reflection in a photo of it. But I mean, I've physically seen them, and they do kind of look like they glow.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see if that is actually true. And the reason why is, I don't think, and no offense to Blue Cruise, I have not yet to see a good dogman photo out there. So I would be worried if it's more AI generated or Photoshopped.
And that's possible too. I have one that I personally think is good, but it's of a dog man pup, and he's sitting up in a tree, and you can see his ears, his snout, his eyes, his shoulders. But yeah, dogman photos, we don't get as many as we do of the Sasquatch. They're more aloof. I mean, once in a while you get one that's really nosy and curious, but they are more aloof than the Sasquatch even.
Well, it's very true. Very true. I know you've had your experience, and we actually had this talk out in the forest the other day. Why do you think that we haven't got a high quality video? And there are a number of them out there, and some of them are quite convincing. But why do you think we haven't got a good video of a Sasquatch since Patterson-Gimlin?
Well, I think when they got Patty, it's important that everybody remembers that was an 8mm film. It was not digital. Okay. So these are high frequency beings. Back in the 60s, the kind of cameras and the film that they use were not digital. And that plays a very large part. These are high frequency beings. They radiate energy. And, for the people that have had interaction with them, you'll know what I'm talking about. You get close to them and it is like this excessively heavy blanket that's put over the top of you. Okay. It's not being zapped. It's just weight, because that energy is so intense. It's like going next to something radioactive. So what happens is when you take a picture with a digital camera, that frequency blurs it. Not that they can't do that too, but the thing is their frequency blurs it. Yet if you go and you take a picture in an area and you take a random picture where they're cloaked, they are so busy altering their frequency to make them cloak, just like a hummingbird does with its wings at a bird feeder. That's why you can't see the wings, but you just see the body, that they don't try to mess with the digital camera. The worst thing that ever happened for us trying to get pictures of them are the digital cameras. It makes it too easy to be messed with, and the digital cameras are too sensitive to photographing the high frequency. It blurs it. I don't care what it is. What kind of cryptid, it automatically blurs it. Where when Patty was filmed, that was with the old reels of film footage. There was no digital anything.
Do you think we'll ever get another good video?
I'm
A
not going to
convincing
say.
video.
I'm not. Well, here's the thing. When I worked on the Genome Project, we did have clear video. It was crystal clear, extremely expensive. Cameras were used and they were photographed, and they didn't know it was being photographed. And there are some beautiful, beautiful footage of Matilda, and nobody believed it. So I don't think it's impossible to get it if the distance is far enough and you just have like that lens that, makes it look closer, which is what they did, and you have the extremely expensive camera, you can probably get it. But people, unless they do it themselves, they refuse to believe it. And there's been so much hoaxing out there and forgery, and now the AI stuff, that people just simply don't want to believe it. That footage of Matilda was real. It was as legit as it comes. And I've seen video of her. I've seen the different footages of her, and it was clear. And those pictures were as clear as the Patterson-Gimlin, if not clearer. And it was ridiculed and trashed. And it was tragic, because those were 100% legit. And Adrian Erickson, I believe it was his footage, was blessed to have even gotten it. And if I remember correctly, there was many months of work and time and money that went into being able to get that. And nobody believed it, which is just a travesty, because it's really just exquisite pictures of her.
Were those pictures ever released to the public?
Yes. There were more, to my knowledge, that were going to be released, and they were pulled because there was no point. This is what people don't realize, a lot of information on that study could have come out had people behaved themselves. The paper was out. Everybody, not everybody, because we did have a lot of supporters. We have a lot of supporters for the Cryptid Genome Project that's underway right now. And for that, I'm extremely blessed and grateful. But there were photos put out. There was a short video clip of her as well. And then there was one very clear that was used, I believe, with a special lens to bring it closer of her face. And she happened to be the type that did look like a Chewbacca. Okay. They're all different. Some of them look like that. That's just a fact. And there was another one of her walking that was phenomenal and every bit as clear as Patty's. Every bit as clear. And the video footage was too. There was one of her laying down taking a nap, and you could count her respirations. And people were so cruel and so hateful that after a while, and I have to respect Adrian for this, the choice was made to take them down. And what footage he had that I had heard he was going to release for the project was withdrawn. And I don't blame him. I have the utmost respect for him. Why would you put yourself through the hate that we had? There was no reason to. Nobody was going to listen. They had already determined it was going to be fake before it ever came out. And then when it did, we had, and like I said, we had a lot of supporters. We had a lot of people that were grateful that they were able to see this video and the photos and were right there rooting for everybody on the team. And for that, I'm very grateful. But the hate that came through was so violent and volatile and death threats and everything else that the decision was made to pull the rest. But there was a lot of information that would have been released after that study if the hate people had not gotten to the point where it was now physically unsafe for everybody on the team, myself included.
What made it feel unsafe?
The death threats. Not only government death threats, but from the public.
Why would somebody give death threats over proving or disproving a Sasquatch is real?
At that time when we did it, I think it was 2013 on Valentine's Day, we released it. It's either 13 or 14, but I'm quite certain it was 13. At that point in time, the amount of jealousy and I'm going to do it first in the cryptid world was just ridiculous. And when Dr. Ketchum did this, you're talking about a woman, they kept saying, well, she's only a vet. That woman is the most brilliant person I've ever met in my life. She's not only a vet. She's a DNA specialist. She's more than qualified if anybody would actually take a look at her list, of not only accomplishments, but of what she can do. And they never even really wanted to hang around to find out the great lengths that were used for this study to make sure that these samples were clean. I've yet to see another study that has gone through the lengths that she did for that. And everybody was surprised. The whole thing came down to two things. It had 3% in human on the mother's side, and the fact that it was a woman that came out with it. She came out of nowhere and she did what nobody else could do or has been able to duplicate since. And she pulled the genomes, which nobody else has done. And she got the truth. And not only did she get truth, I didn't know her at the time. I didn't even know the study was going on. I was told by the Sasquatch to find her. They didn't give me her name. They said the woman with the light colored hair, she knows the truth about us. You have to help her so that everybody knows we are not monsters. We are not Nephilim, and we are people like you. And that's what I was told. So I set about looking for anybody that knew anything about some study, because I stay away from all of that. I stay in the woods with my groups. I help people, and I kind of stay away from all the big crowds and getting into everything. I don't even watch the Bigfoot shows. And so somebody said, I know exactly what study and who's doing it. Her name is Dr. Melba Ketchum. And I said, please give her my number. I'm not going to hound her or track her down. They told me to help her. This is above my pay grade. Great. I'm not a scientist. I don't know how I can help her, but I will if I can. And she called me. We talked. Many weeks went by, and finally she said, you've never asked me for the results. Why? And I said, I already know the results because they told me. I knew what they were years ago because they told me what they were. And they said, you got it right. So what is the point in asking you? Because if you got it right, you're going to have the same info I have, which she did. But it came out of nowhere. Nobody was prepared for the results. The team wasn't even prepared for the results when they got them. They were just as shocked as everybody else. But the video, there was on the website, which is being updated, so it's not even up right now because it's being redone. But the video of Matilda was on there, as well as 2 photos. And they were crystal clear. There was no way to mistake it. There wasn't anything blurry in it. You know, when the one's doing her respiration, she was laying under a tree taking a nap. And with the lens that could pull the photo to it, the camera was able to be far enough away so it wasn't altered by her frequency. And they came out beautifully. And nobody was going to believe it. And I think that if we get pictures now, the same thing happens. I think if certain people got them, all of a sudden it would be this momentous thing. And that's great, but it's already been done. People just
Now, the
chose
Matilda
to-
video, that's the one where she's on the ground sleeping, right?
Yes. Yes. And that was done so they could counter respirations.
Right.
She
Right.
actually was not that old. As big as she was not that old.
And where was she filmed?
That I cannot release.
Right.
But yeah, it was a lot of work went into that, a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of energy of working with that group. And I was not part of that in any way, shape, or form. That was done before I came into it. But I do know people that were, and it was incredible, the work that they got.
Robin, it's that time already to say goodnight to you, and a big thank you once
Yes.
again for coming on Spaced Out Radio this week. We will talk to you in 2 weeks' time.
You
so
got
thank
it.
you very, very much. We love Robin Haynes.
Love
around
you.
here.
Enjoy.
And we
Good night,
also
everybody.
love Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X, hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and Bigfoot Broadcasting Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. All right, Robinator. Thank you, my dear.
Of course. You have a wonderful night.
You too, my friend.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Love you. Mwah.
Love you too.
Bye-bye.
Robin Haynes, everybody.
Thank you.
We always love it when she is here. Yes, we do. All right. I'm going to call it early tonight, guys, because I literally have to get this done and get up. It's supposed to be my day off tomorrow. I'm going to try and go live for our members tomorrow afternoon. I will let you know on the time, and we go from there. Yeah, we do. So, thank you to Trucker Andrew and Kitty Caddywhack. Merle's on tomorrow night. I better see lots of merling. We need some good merling tomorrow night. So make sure you check it on out. And we're going to go over what happened this past weekend. And Lee and Tim are probably going to join us too. So it'll be a fun night on the show tomorrow night. I hope you're looking forward to it. I am too. If you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe, ring that bell, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.